thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Collision Vision driven by Auto Body News. As always, I'm your host, Cole Strandberg. We've had a couple episodes focused around collision repair M&A featuring my partner, Nancy Rowland. Today, I wanted to switch gears a bit while also keeping it in the Focus investment banking family. Today's guest is a great friend of mine, a colleague at Focus, and a fellow second-generation family business person within the automotive industry, albeit from a bit of a different sector. Our guest today is Giorgio Andonian, Managing Director with Focus Investment Banking's Automotive Aftermarket team. Whereas Nancy and I are focused on the collision repair space in mergers and acquisitions and capital raising, Giorgio spends the bulk of his time in the wheel and tire, automotive services, and auto technology spaces. The guy is an absolute rising star in the industry. Today, we'll talk about different opportunities to add related services to collision repair centers. Speaking of which, I wrote an article on just that topic a few months ago in Auto Body News. We'll also talk about the economic profiles of some different segments of the automotive industry that'll offer a nice frame of reference to collision repair business owners, as well as the future of automotive, family business, and a whole lot more in this packed conversation. Enjoy the show. Giorgio Andonian, thank you for joining us today here on the Collision Vision.
Pleasure to be here, Cole. Thanks for having me in.
Man, can't wait. It's going to be a blast of a conversation. I gave a little bit of your background and our relationship at the top of the show, but would love to hear kind of your story in your own words.
Sure. Well, first, again, thank you for having me on, and I'll give you a little bit of my background and how I ended up in investment banking, which is not your typical approach, as I'm sure you have your experience as well. So I grew up in the tire and service business, automotive repairs and general tire replacements and services as well. I'd say about 2012, 13 is when I officially was working for the family business of Discount Tire Centers out here in Southern California. At the time, we had somewhere between 40 and 50 locations, and I was asked to come in and help with everyday operations and business consulting, inventory management, marketing, anything and everything to get a better feel of what the business was about. I'd say over the next 10 years or so, or not 10 years, a few years, we ended up selling part of our business to Pep Boys. And from there on out, we realized that same overhead, half the business probably is not a reasonable way to run it. So we decided to branch out with my father and I, start our own little group of tire stores, grew that to say about 8 locations before we spun it off to private equity group. But in the meantime, Focus had represented a family member of ours in their sale. So naturally, they came over to our family and asked if we were interested in participating in a possible transaction. At the time, nothing came of it. However, I did connect with our CEO, Rick, at the time, at the moment, and Michael McGregor, who's currently my partner, and was asked to see if I'd be interested in joining Focus as an investment banker. Learned everything that I needed to do, and took all my exams, studied all my books, and lo and behold, here we are doing deals in the automotive space, everything automotive aftermarket, including some of your collision deals. Obviously, we're together in some equipment more so, and focused heavily on tire and service, parts and accessories, e-commerce, and some consumer businesses as well.
Beautiful, man. Such a cool background. And I say that in a very biased way because I think there are a lot of parallels in our backgrounds as we've talked about. And don't sell yourself short. You had the experience kind of at the ground level in the family business, operating and growing tire stores. But you're an MBA too. And
so I did my MBA from Pepperdine University. So I appreciate reminding me of that experience.
It's just such a cool combination. And I think to be able to be sophisticated in the finance piece, yet, coming from that background in family businesses at the shop level, being able to communicate with all walks of life is a real strong suit. So you told your background up until kind of joining Focus, and a little bit about where you spend some time on within Focus. But let's dive a little bit deeper into what exactly it is you do here at Focus Investment Banking.
Sure. We are M&A advisors for the most part. We are helping most business owners either do a full sale or what we call a recapitalization, where they will sell a certain percentage of their business, generally majority, and partner with a private equity group to help continue to grow their business, add on other acquisitions, and I guess in the next 5 to 7 years, which is generally a private equity's fund life, sell it again. So a lot of times business owners still have some energy and gas in the tank and they want to continue, but they want to do it with somebody else's money. And so we help them do that. And many times we see that they actually make quite a bit more money on the second bite of the apple than they did on their already first lucrative sale. So that's probably about 70% of what we do. 20 to 30% will be somewhere between some capital raises and debt raises for those looking to build a warehouse or a facility of sorts, or they have a specific plan where Focus can help them raise capital. And the other one that we're pretty active with is buy side. And this is when we'll get hired by whether it's a private equity group or a large, $500 million plus company that is looking to do acquisitions. They need somebody to help be their outsourced business development and acquisitions partner. And that's what we do.
Awesome. Very cool. And you mentioned we focus on different aspects of the automotive aftermarket, but there's so many parallels and so many crossovers in that world. I know something we talk about a ton on the Collision Vision is consolidation. I guess at a high level, I know you're seeing that in the wheel and tire space.
Oh yeah.
What are some of the hottest kind of markets right now and subsectors of the automotive aftermarket?
Yeah, tire and service is the biggest area right now. I think the attraction is consistency. It's not cyclical. It is, when COVID came around, essential business, right? And that seems to be the key takeaway from it. Whether it's a recession or a great economic growth, the business still exists. It is a necessity. Cars need to get serviced. People need to get places. And it's been attractive, and the returns are consistent. And I think that has made a lot of different groups want to continue to dig in deeper, grow larger, and take advantage of the economies of scale, similar to the collision space.
Yep. So many parallels. And we talk about it like a looming recession certainly makes investors weary of investing in some of these like optional services. Right. Some of the maybe the customization piece, all that stuff, still some heat there for sure. But they love the consistent demand. And then something that we've talked about here a lot about the collision industry that absolutely spreads into the wheel and tire space is there's so much innovation in the automotive aftermarket.
Absolutely.
What is not going to be innovated away from? And wheel and tire, certainly, collision repair as well. So I love both of our spaces.
Yeah, I always say, even if you're going to have a flying car, you have to land it. So you're still going to need tires and brakes. So we're a long ways from ever not needing tires, I think.
Absolutely. Awesome. So to that, you and I in the past have spoken a lot about some automotive services that kind of complement the collision repair business on the whole. From your perspective, what are some of the lowest hanging fruits that collision repairers can come and pick for their own business?
Yeah, I'd say just from working in the stores, because historically growing up, I did work summers in the shops and so on. So I remember some of our best quote unquote wholesale accounts were body shops. We are always selling tires, always mounting tires for them and doing alignments. And it never made sense to me. And I'm going, you have a giant facility, you have all this equipment. Establishing a relationship with a wholesale tire distributor is a one-page application. Why are they outsourcing it, delivering a car, waiting for the car, picking up the car, paying to have this service done when it could be done in-house? I never understood it. And to this day, I still don't understand. I'm sure there's a reason for it, but it's just so easy to be able to have a tire delivery come to your store, install it, and be done with it instead of having to shuttle the cars back and forth.
Yeah, it seems like maybe the biggest constraint would be opportunity costs. You're having highly skilled techs spending time on that, but at the same time, those highly skilled techs, if you can fix a car, you can probably learn how to put a tire on, and these guys know
Teach
that.
me. I can tell you, any tech with any reasonable skills can do it. If they can teach me, it's not a problem.
Absolutely. Now, give me a sense on the tire piece in that industry. You know, we talk a lot about collision repair margins. How about in the tire world?
So if we're talking pure retail, you're in the low to mid 30s all in, including tire labor. That includes the rubber installation, wheel balancing, and all of that. Um, the tire itself is probably somewhere between 10 and 20%, depending on the brand. The rest will be all labor. That's just pure what we call cost of rubber. As you do scale, you do have incentives from your distributors and manufacturers that provide back end dollars, rebates. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the rebate concept. That could improve those margins another, 5 to 10 points.
Awesome. Very good. Yeah, very familiar with that. And pretty compelling sounding margins, especially when you have kind of your overhead component cost in already to your
Already built
business.
into
So
it,
if you
right?
can add that, I go back. I wrote an article for Auto Body News sometime mid to late last year that was very much along the lines of this conversation about different services to at least consider bringing in to gain some extra margin. The collision business and any business right now is not getting any easier. So if you can have some opportunities to make more money, right, it's always a good thing to consider. So tires definitely an option out there. Talk to me a little bit about the automotive service business, the oil and lube, the mechanical. I know you have some experience there as well.
Yeah. Oil and lube, as you can imagine, especially from what we're seeing, the transition to EVs and hybrid has slowed that down a bit. Not too much, but the rest of the services still are pretty dominant. Brakes being the probably the easiest one. Alignment, I kind of categorize that under the tires as well, tire service, because you do need an alignment. It's probably your most profitable sale, 100%. It's pure labor. It's all profit. Really, the biggest expense is the equipment initially, but you have deals to be able to finance those over time. You're probably looking somewhere between $30 and $40, $50,000 for an alignment machine. But if you start doing the math, the number of cars a collision center sees, they all need to be aligned, every single one, after getting into an accident. You could probably bill the insurance, I would assume, a couple $100. Right now, they're paying us somewhere between $60 and $100. Us being a tire and service center, of $60 and $100. So they're cutting their margin in half. If you can bring that in house, I'd call that the second lowest hanging fruit. You obviously need space for it and the equipment, but it's such an easy service that any technician who can work on a frame can easily do an alignment as well. And by the way, many of the manufacturers provide in-store training for this. So it's not too difficult to be able to bring that in as well. Alignments have always been our best sale when going back to my few years in the business. So.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Back in my equipment days, spent a lot of time in dealer service departments, and they'd be the first to tell you the most profitable thing we do is alignments. It's all labor, a pretty clear ROI on the equipment, and post collision repair alignments. To your point, even more so, more necessary, and totally makes sense. Talk to me about some of the other kind of maybe lesser thought about subsectors of the automotive aftermarket, whether that be some customization, accessories. What else is out there, and what are the margin profiles there as well?
Customization is probably the biggest one and where accessories will fall under that. You have wheels, interior, exterior, and then you have the whole performance side of it too. And it all depends on, are you private label or are you a reseller? Private label, if we're talking pure gross margin, not to the bottom line, you're in the 60 to 70%. Most of these guys are buying something from overseas or designing it, slapping a label and selling it as their own brand. We've sold quite a few companies like that as well. And all the way down to the bottom line, you're talking about a 20 to 30% EBITDA to sales margin profile. It's incredible. The concern is those are incredibly competitive, especially when you're going online. Everyone can buy something from Alibaba or eBay or direct source from China, and you're competing for the same parts. It's almost like a commodity, even though it's not. It's your own branded commodity. I'd say pre-COVID, it was really exciting and a very hot space because of the margin, because of the e-commerce profile. But a lot of those companies kind of got burned during the post-COVID bump decline. And so while the margins are incredible, the growth rate is what becomes a little bit challenging for those who are looking to acquire from a private equity perspective. If you're owning the business, yeah, you're probably making great cash flow and it's wonderful. You'd really need to differentiate yourself if you're looking to sell your company. What differentiates you? What is your moat? We always talk about that when we're dealing with clients. What's your moat? What protects somebody else from doing what you're doing? That could be IP, patents, thousands and thousands of hours of developer hours within your website. Those are the types of pieces that you really need to think about. And really, paid ads is not your moat. Everyone is competing for those, so you need to make sure that your organic growth, your brand name is actually there. And that's where you'll start to see very high profit, a lot of interest from potential acquirers, competitors, and so on.
Yep, absolutely.
They are profitable. The e-com and the low overhead costs really help. Especially, one thing we're seeing a lot of these e-com companies is outsource support. India, China, all over the world, where it just keeps the cost so low that they're able to make a killer profit every year.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, we're sort of getting higher and higher hanging fruit, but I like talking about it because maybe an unintended side effect of getting into what I'll call the sexier aspects of the automotive aftermarket. We talk about a ton of consolidation and succession planning.
Yeah.
The Fast and Furious type stuff is pretty cool if you're looking to get the kids in the business or something like that. And it's a lot of fun to talk about. One thing that's a little lower hanging fruit that I'd love to just touch on briefly, because it's a very hot topic in the collision ecosystem, is ADAS. What have you seen out there, and any commentary there?
Everyone I talk to is interested in it. I think as technology improves and continues to develop, you're going to see a lot more of winners and losers in the space. I know it comes, at least when I was in the shops, it was a topic, especially when it comes to repairs and alignments and all those pieces. And it just added a layer of complexity. Actually made the equipment even more expensive. And you did need a little bit more specialized technicians to be able to reset the systems, work on those, understand how they all kind of come into play. That's pretty much what I think and what I know about the ADAS systems. The complexity continues to be a challenge, I think, and each iteration of a vehicle seems to have a little bit of a different layer of it.
No doubt, and that's not slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah.
All of those, just so many different opportunities, I think, to bring some things in-house. I guess the one question that I've posed to myself and I'd pose to you there is a little bit counterintuitive, but typically the more diverse an automotive company gets, you might limit your buyer pool a little bit.
No question.
Any commentary on that, kind of the risk versus reward of diversifying your business?
I'd say if it's very related to what you're doing and there's a way to improve your bottom line with it, think tires. It's a low investment. You're going to buy a tire machine and a balancer and you're done. Can only support your buyer pool. But we've had scenarios where we have a tire center that is looking to do a sale, and they do some e-commerce sales. They do eBay, Amazon, in-store sales. They do wheels and accessories and parts. And you can't separate that business. Nobody wants a business that's incredibly complex. So if I was a collision center and I was doing brakes, oil changes, and tires and repairs, they're going to carve that out and say, well, that's not something that we're going to continue. The tire side totally makes sense, and it would be a margin supporting opportunity. But if you complicate your business model too much, it's not going to work, and you're going to limit your interest. Stick to what you're good at. Know what's in there. If you need to expand a little bit, do it smartly, do it strategically. If your facility, for example, cannot support the size of doing an additional service, don't force it. Don't jam it in there. If you're going to do it right.
Yep, absolutely. Be opportunistic, but be strategic with it too. Make sure the story works. And
You have to make sure it works. You got to see it from the buyer's perspective.
well put. So, diving a little bit deeper into the tire space, for example, we talk again a lot about consolidation and valuations within collision repair. A lot of collision repair businesses, especially the 1, 2, 3 store operations who are going the MSO consolidator route when it's time to exit, a lot of our multiples are discussed as a percentage of revenue.
Right.
How are tire stores valued as an example?
Tires are purely based off of EBITDA, and it depends on if it's a platform or an add-on. If it's a platform, you have to consider administrative costs with it as well, because you can't just give them the stores. When it's an add-on, we generally try and do on a store-only EBITDA, so removing admin, because the acquirer already has a platform. They don't need additional office space, for example. And it'll be multiples. And depending on how large it is, from a single store being from 2 to 3 times an EBITDA, to multi-location can go from 5 and frankly all the way up to 10, depending on the size that you're in. 100 plus locations, you're probably going to get quite a few bidders and double-digit multiples, assuming that you have a profitable, well-run operation. Most of what we're seeing is in the middle of that, somewhere between 5 and 8, just depending on the type of business that you have. And it's all based on your EBITDA. Take out all your owner expenses. I'm sure you've addressed this on your podcast before, but all your discretionary, your grandmother, your father, your son, all those payrolls, the one I'm dealing with now, and the private jets, and so all that comes out, and we multiply it based on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, nothing wrong with running some of that through the business, but letting us know it when it's time to make a sale just adds value to the business.
And the one piece I'll kind of leave here is, if you are doing it, account for it properly. Don't mix it. It's easy to identify, and that becomes the biggest thing. You don't change what you're doing, but be able to pull it out so that you're not going back and forth trying to figure out what was what when you're in the middle of trying to negotiate a purchase price.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. And it's my understanding, but just to confirm, the tire space consolidation has sort of mirrored the collision repair consolidation. Are that kind of regional multi-location operators, are they dwindling sort of like they are in collision repair? And also, I imagine, increasing competition over opportunities like that.
Absolutely. There's no question. Not only are we competing with other banks, but you're seeing all these private equity groups or platforms going directly to these sellers or businesses and trying to do a one-on-one deal and avoid the auction process, which we always say they will tell you that they're going to pay you the best possible price and best terms. But unless they have the feeling that they're going to lose this opportunity, they're not going to put their best foot forward. And that's where we come in. And we always pay for our fees. I mean, we make it worth the while because they know that there are options out there. But you are correct. I'd say the major metropolitan cities have pretty much been consolidated, but there are so many opportunities within the middle of the country. And I just mean not the coasts. California, Texas, Florida, New York, Northeast. Yeah, those guys, there's a lot of activity that's happened there, but there's so much more to the country. And we're seeing a lot more of those, maybe 4 or 5 location operations as opposed to 15 or 20 store operations. But the 4 or 5 are still quite profitable, and there's a lot of opportunities for them and for a lot of growth and scale.
Absolutely. Awesome, man. Well, shifting gears on you a little bit, I'd be remiss not to spend a little time on the family business piece. I think, again, your story and mine have some aspects that mirror, but it is one of my favorite topics. And but what was your perception of the business while growing up, kind of around it? And did you always know you wanted to be involved eventually?
No. So it was always fun because cars, tires. I mean, I truly remember growing up in the warehouse. My cousins and I would get yelled at. We would cause all kinds of trouble in their distribution centers. But one thing I was told growing up, and it was almost ingrained in my head, you are not going to be part of the family business. You're not go get your own degree, go be a professional somewhere. And so I did. I graduated college from University of San Diego, and I went and found a job in used clothing recycling, of all things, in downtown LA. Probably about 9 months into it is when I got the phone call going, all the stuff we've been telling you for 15 years, forget about it. Can you come and join the family business? And you don't leave your dad hanging. So I did just that. I left that job and I went to start working for the family business and really went into inventory management and purchasing to start. And that's kind of where my journey started, and truly understanding the corporate side of the tire business, because I had spent a lot of time in the shops. I knew that inside and out.
Awesome. Yeah, it's so funny. There are two very different ways I think that parents talk to their kids about the family business. That one's a common one. It's stay away, don't go.
Yeah.
Another one, I think many people assume they're going to be part of the family business. I found myself somewhere in the middle where it was like, hey, maybe one day, but go do something else first. And like you got the call, and when dad comes calling or mom comes calling, you
You
typically
got to do
do
it. They did so
answer.
much for you, so you got to pay it back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, frankly, a lot of people view the entrance of a second generation into the business as kind of, oh, they're not selling. So how did that conversation kind of come up? Was it an emotional time for you and the family? Were those conversations pretty deep? Walk me through that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that my father was at the point where he was reaching retirement age. And the question was, well, how much do you want to do this? Do you want, and he's asking that to me, do you want to take this on? Do you want to continue to grow it? And for me, I was concurrently working at Focus while transitioning out of my father's business. So I was able to see both sides of the world. And I'm going, hey, Dad, there's a great opportunity here. There's consolidation going on. You guys have ingrained in me that I'm not going to be part of this family business anyway. I like this in this deal making side on the investment banking. Maybe we should consider an opportunity. And really, we didn't even go through the process. We were approached. So we had stopped even considering a sale until we were approached, just like the private equity comes directly to you. But
Yep.
it was a little bit different because the buyers knew my other job. And so we made sure they put their best foot forward from the start. And it was a difficult decision, but I didn't really have the appetite to continue with the retail operations. And I was involved with everyday issues, customer issues, and employee issues. And I liked helping customers, our clients actually, is on the Focus side more than I did dealing with the everyday, the same issue. California is really hard with labor laws and employees, and it's just a lot of headaches. And that was kind of the reason for the sale: is if you don't want to take this on and you don't have the energy, then yeah, let's take advantage of the consolidation going on and get the best price for it, and see what happens. And that's exactly what we did.
Awesome. Yep. Great stories, and the parallels continue, but I'll leave
Yeah,
that for another
I
day.
think that's why we get along, Cole.
That's it, man. Well, and that leads perfectly into my next question is, what the heck is it about the automotive aftermarket that keeps pulling you back in? You can't leave. I know we've talked about it before. I'll never leave it in one way or another. You'll never leave it. What is it that excites people like you and me about the industry, do you think?
You know what it is? First, it's such a old business. I think there's just a lot of history, and as big as the industry is, just as you'll be able to confirm, it's a small industry. So everybody, and there's this familiar feeling with it. There's obviously something in the blood. I think when you're born, it just kind of comes in there. But especially like you and I, we're experts in the space. We've worked it, so it becomes easy to stay here and be that voice that people can rely on and say, not only do you understand this business because you've worked it, but now you're also helping a lot of other business owners, and it just becomes a good place to park yourself in, I think. And it's just got to be the comfort and understanding of it. And I felt that's pretty valuable when I talk to clients, is they understand that I understand what they're going through. And
Priceless. Yeah, absolutely. And you nailed it. I think it's repetitive at this point. I've said it a lot recently. It's yeah, collision, automotive aftermarket, whatever is a big industry, but it is a small world,
very
and
small.
it's got the best people in the world. It seems like, and
It's a lot
I
of
know.
hardworking, good, honest people that have made a good living, whether it's a single store or multi-generation, multi-location. Um, it's provided a lot for a lot of people for a long
Absolutely.
time.
Oh, no question about it. Before we start to kind of get to our key takeaways and wrapping up, is there anything we haven't talked about today that we should before we part ways?
I think I'm good. I can't think of anything that I'm missing.
All right, then I did my job. I'll
Good
take
job.
that.
I
I'll
hope I
take
did
that.
mine.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Really appreciate you taking the time to come on board. And
Thanks.
with that, as you know, we like to end each episode of the Collision Vision with some key takeaways. What do you think those are from our conversation today?
I mean, the biggest thing for us that we had chatted about is what are some opportunities strategically that you could take on in-house more so than subbing out, a way to improve your bottom line. What's it going to take to improve that, whether it's tire service or alignments or anything else? I just feel like that's the lowest hanging fruit for potential, collision shop owners. Additionally, we may not have touched on it, but just financials, I'd say, are incredibly important. And I've noticed a lot of our guys in the automotive aftermarket don't put a lot of emphasis on having clean books. So not only is that important when it's time for a transaction, but you should be reviewing a detailed P&L every month, truly, balance sheets. If you don't have that, you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're able to really make a strategic decision um, otherwise.
Awesome, man. Great stuff. Where can people kind of follow along with you, learn more about the team, get in touch?
So obviously our website at focusbankers.com will tell everything about our automotive aftermarket team and all the other verticals that we work in. Myself, I also post a lot on LinkedIn. You'll see a lot of my articles. In addition to, if you're in the tire business, tire industry, I do write for Tire Business. My colleague Michael McGregor writes for Modern Tire Dealers, so you'll continue to see our articles coming in. And really, it's all about providing insights and potentially helping prospects or clients with their operations and their business, because we see both sides of that angle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I will include all of that in the show notes to make it easier for listeners to do that. Give Giorgio a follow on LinkedIn. Check out his articles. It is a different industry, but it's so closely related. There's a ton to be learned from operators in those spaces. But Giorgio Andonian, thank you so much for coming on the show. A pleasure as always, and look forward to speaking again soon.
Thanks, Cole. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you again to my colleague Giorgio Andonian of Focus Investment Banking for joining us on today's show. I think it's important to learn from other sectors of the automotive industry, and I think there's a lot to learn. And I thought Giorgio provided some great actionable insights for us to take and use in the collision repair space. Before we wrap up today's show, I wanted to reiterate Giorgio's key takeaways, and those were: don't be afraid to take some work in-house. Get margin where you can, especially when the investment is nominal. Be aggressive, but be smart with how you grow your business internally on some new initiatives. Additionally, be sure to have clean books. This is great advice for not only selling your business in the M&A process, but for operating it. Visibility is key. A mentor of mine once said, if you can't measure it, you can't measure it. That's all for today's show. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to subscribe to the Collision Vision wherever you get your podcasts. And, be sure to share it with your friends in the industry who might enjoy it as well. Additionally, if you want to see a video version of the Collision Vision, you can now find that on YouTube at Auto Body News' YouTube page. As always, on behalf of the Auto Body News team and myself, thank you for coming along for the ride.